Hi there. I want to talk about one of the common mistakes in texturing in Maya. This is one of the fundamentals, and to get this wrong means that you could be in a world of problems, and sometimes without knowing it until it's too late. So we have in 3D what is called UV unwrapping, and UV unwrapping is basically telling the 3D software how the UV layout should be on the object. So in this case here, it's supposed to be a square on this plane, but the UV mapping of that texture here, the mapping is telling the software or programming the software to give us the texture to be filling that square in a certain way. So the mapping right now is 1-to-1 ratio for that texture on that square. So naturally, if I select the UV shell and if I shrink it, it's going to affect the way it's gonna look on the texture there, on the geometry. But if I scale it bigger, especially that this is a seamless texture that I have here, which means it's a texture that can repeat without being obvious. So when I scale it up, it may give me the impression that this is the way to repeat a texture. The problem though is that in 3D we start with 4 squares when it comes to the UV mapping, and typically only the upper right square out of those 4 to be the one that would be used. Meaning, this is the side here that we start with. We have this one, and this one. Now the other squares, those exist for advanced purposes, for things such as UDEMs. That's a story for a different tutorial. Now, if your texture exceeds this square here, let me take this off. Notice here the 0, 0.1, 0.2, all the way to 1. So 1-to-1 ratio, that means it's filling up the entire map. Beyond that, then you're going to be playing Pac-Man, meaning anything that exits from this side is not going to continue to this side here. Instead, it's going to continue from here. It's going to be that snake that eats its tail. Meaning, if I select these vertices, okay, and then push them out, notice how I don't have any texture here, but it's still providing new textures. That's because any extension going forward to the right side is actually consuming the texture from the left side. So naturally, when I scale this up, or even if I want to put the pivot here and scale it this way, to make it easier to digest, I guess, by repeating it this way, it's pretty much copying the same information over and over and over, vertically and horizontally. So, the common mistake that I want to talk about is that this is not the right way to tile or repeat a texture. Instead, here's how it's supposed to be done. You never do it using the UV editor. Instead, you select the object, and then you can go to the texture tab here. I'm going to show you how to do that in 2 different ways. And it's important to understand it in 2 different ways. So I'll go to the material tab, then go to the texture where it's plugged. This here is directory of that texture that I'm using. You see other options and whatsoever. Now, where I need to go is right here. Place 2D texture. Remember this name, place 2D texture. Here is the area where you can change coverage. Let's say 0.5. So now it's only covering 50%. And then if you say here 0.5 as well, it's going to be like that. So this is the mapping of that texture. Let's open here the UV editor again. And now if I change the coverage, 0.5, and by the way, if I hold down Control and squeeze down, so now you can see it's changing the way of the mapping of that texture, the way it's processed. Now, check this out. If I go to the rotate frame, hello. Okay. Now the important one that I want to show you is right here. Repeat UV. If you want to repeat this to be 10 times bigger, then 10. Enter. It looks weird, right? That's because it tiled it in one direction 10 times. Then you type here 10, and now it is 10 times bigger overall, and that's the way it's supposed to be done. So this is how you tile your texture properly. Now, let me show you how to get to that place 2D texture in a different way. Why do I want to show you this? For two main reasons. First of all, so you can fully understand how this whole thing works, meaning when you select an object and you go here to the channels, it's not like you're going to the void somewhere, but instead you're actually moving in the hypershade, in the network of that material. So that's the first reason, to fully understand how this whole connection works between the attribute editor and the hypershade. And the second reason is so you get more familiar with how the hypershade actually works. So this is the material, and this here is the diffuse texture, or in other words, this is the image that makes that metal plate diffuse look, the texture itself. But see this here, place 2D texture. This here is what we reached. So focus here. When I select on the material, see that square, and there's an arrow there. See how the arrow is on the left side and not on the right side? That means, it doesn't mean I'm going to the right. It actually means I'm going to the left, meaning that I want to go to the node that is connected from the left, meaning before. This is the material, and I want to go before to go here, which is right there. So material, if I click here, it's going to jump from here to here. And then if I go on the second tab, that's going to take me here. So now you have a closer understanding of how that connection here works and how those arrows are visualized. And to help you even understand further, I'm going to select this node. If I select this button here, notice what's going to happen. Where did the other guy go? Well, I selected on give me everything else after that node. Now, if I select this guy again and say give me everything before and only that, only the items or the nodes connected before, then it's going to give me this result. And if I select on this guy and select, you know what, give me the before and after. So now you fully understand how these arrows are visualized. If you're interested in more of these videos, let me know so I would focus more on them in the future. Thanks for watching.